Good day. What are we going to do with that lemon? I am Dr. Sandra Renee Stanley, and I'm just here today to talk about things that people aren't comfortable talking about in the church. And I am here to make sure that we're getting the information out there for the good of the community. So today I have a special guest that I have invited to talk. And he's very special to me, like another son. He wants to share his testimony. At Opening Doors for Women in Need, we are over the 20 years we have helped women, and we had to venture out to help men. But even though Will has been my neighbor for years, we haven't had a real discussion about his background and his history. And then he saw me talking to another young man about his background and the issues he was having, and we started having a serious conversation. So I asked him to come today to talk about his barriers, his issues, his testimony on what he went through as a young man. Because what I see over the 20 years is we have so many of our young brown and black young men and women landing in prison for simple things that our other brothers and sisters that don't look like us, they don't usually, they get probation most of the time. And that's an issue. That's a community's concern. So I just want to give him an opportunity to put the raw truth out and get him to share with us so we can understand, because a lot of people don't understand even what they have to go through once they're incarcerated. And what does that do, Will, to a young man? So I'm passing the lemon to you. It's your lemon to tell today. And welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Stanley. My name is William Romero. I'm a local horticulturist here in Fort Worth, Texas, and Lake Como, and I've got a kind of a difficult story. I don't share it with everybody, but I'm not ashamed of it. I've known Dr. Stanley for well over 10 years, and immediately wanted to help her with what she had going on at the community garden and with the community period. I don't know if I should start at my tell my story. If you want to ask me some
No, I
questions.
want you to tell your story because I think it's so important. Even though when people meet us, they don't know our story, and people make assumptions. They assume they don't know what you've been through, and so I think this is a great opportunity. And maybe a young man out there that might be struggling, you can give a young man hope. But then also the raw truth of what happens to a young man when they incarcerate them for something so simple as what you had to go to jail for, prison for. So let's just share your testimony. Feel free to share it with us,
All
what you
right.
feel comfortable with.
Yeah, you give me a platform, I'm gonna tell my whole life story. Well, I was born in Compton in Los Angeles, 1987. My mother is a black woman born and raised in Compton. My dad's a Chicano from Arizona. They met in the Navy. Both of my parents were in the Navy. And they met at a Navy base called Point Magoo in California. And we moved out here in '94. My dad was transferred out here to the Navy base to Carswell, and that's where he retired from. Fort Worth I love my city, our school system. Some of the schools need some improvement, particularly Leonard Middle School. That ended my public school career pretty early. I dropped out in 8th grade, and I had good grades and everything.
Were you bored, or what happened? What made you drop out?
I got kicked out. I got kicked out of Leonard Middle School, went to Middle Level Learning Center, and then the next year I was supposed to go back to Leonard, and I was not allowed back at Leonard.
What was so serious that
I
you're not
really
allowed
didn't
back?
get anything too serious, and I don't know all the specifics of what the school district and Leonard Middle School talked about, but yeah. So I before getting a GED behind bars, I had a 7th grade education.
But let me go back. So, 8th grader. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. So, what did your parents get involved? I mean, they're military. They had.
They attempted to do some homeschooling. It was hard when, you know, my dad worked 3 jobs, my mom worked full time, and we ended up getting scammed by a fake school at a River Oaks. Uh,
Wow.
but anyway, as soon as I could get a full-time job, my dad was like, "Well, here's a truck, go get a job." Uh,
How old were you then?
that was right when I turned 16. Yeah, right when I turned 16,
So did
I
you
started
feel
working
like
40 plus hours a week.
Did you feel like the system, how did that make you feel as a child? How did that make you feel?
For a couple of years, it was very confusing, and I felt alone. But then, as soon as I got a job, I just felt like I needed to grow up. You know,
So making money made you feel better
for sure.
and
Oh, yeah.
it's responsible.
hmm
Okay. So, okay, continue. I kind of
So,
interrupted you.
I didn't have any direction. I would bounce from job to job, you know, and I would keep a job for 6 months to a year, you know, and then I'd get bored with that job and try to find something else. And I ended up getting hemmed up when I was 20 years old and catching a felony. I was at a party, and the police showed up, and we were all underage, you know, and I pushed the cop and took off running. And man, when the police say, "Don't you run for me," they mean it. And yeah, I got tasered like almost to death and woke up in an ambulance with the EKG machine on me. You know,
Was that in Fort Worth?
that was in Fort Worth, yeah. And they ended up taking me downtown. I was arrested for resisting arrest and evading arrest, which are both misdemeanors, but they enhanced the resisting arrest to resisting arrest with a deadly weapon because I had a spring-loaded pocket knife on me, which was illegal back in the day. It's not even illegal anymore.
It was like, how big was it?
It was probably like a 3-inch blade at the biggest, maybe smaller than that.
Something you,
It's something I would open
like a
boxes
Boy
with.
Scout.
Yeah,
knife.
like a Boy Scout knife, yeah.
Wow.
But the judicial system pressured me into signing for it. Like they were offering me 10 years behind bars.
Was it a plea deal?
Yeah, I signed a plea. I ended up taking the minimum 2 years, and it took a while. It took a while to come to that agreement. It took like a year. I was about to go to trial, and
Were you still in jail or were you out?
no, I was out, and so like I did turn 21 in jail, and I didn't go to jail on my 21st birthday. I was just in there, but so I signed for 2 years, and that's when I got my GED. I got my GED in prison, and I got the Wyndham School District Valedictorian Award of 2010. That was my accomplishment. But really, what changed that I'm really not too bitter about doing 2 years behind bars because I didn't have any direction, and even though I really probably shouldn't have been there in the first place, I used that time to the fullest, and I got the education that I could in that short period of time, and really found Jesus Christ, and spent a lot of time reading the Bible. And the prison ministries are amazing. They do all you prison ministries out there. Thank you. You're doing big things, and you are making a difference. That changed my attitude.
Did you remember the name of any of those?
Oh man, there was all kinds of them. So
Did you do? Did they have like overcomers when you were in there? Did they have the overcomers?
no, that doesn't sound familiar. It was mainly specific churches,
Churches,
you know, sending
coming in.
sending people
It's
in
so
there.
important.
Yes, bringing us literature and giving us hope and faith and something higher to believe in. You know, even somebody who's in there for life has a higher power and something they could believe in for eternity. You know, and so that changed my attitude, and I needed some work ethic also. And the only job I had when I was behind bars is what they call the hoe squad.
What's a hoe
The
squad?
hoe squad.
Oh, that's working in the garden.
In the
hoe
field.
squad.
Yeah, they call it the hoe squad because
Yeah, you line up, right? The girls taught me about that.
Yeah, I mean, it really feels like going back in time about 300 years and being on
slavery.
the chain gang.
Yeah, in slavery.
Yes, no, seriously, because every prison is a farm. and I went in through Middleton unit in West Texas, and they had long, probably like a mile long farm of rows of vegetables and whatnot.
What kind of vegetables?
They was mainly like squash, zucchini, corn, tomatoes, peppers, melons. They did a lot of watermelons and whatnot.
So you're telling me that prison is a business, so they utilize you guys as
Yeah,
the labor,
the labor
and
for
then they
everything.
was probably had agreements with different places where they ship those produce out.
No,
to.
they're feeding inmates. They're
Oh,
feeding inmates with that food.
Oh,
So the inmates, some units have cows, pigs, chicken farms. Like these are all farms, especially the big prisons. That's what they call them. You're on the farm now. And so that was the only job I had in there. And I remember when I was still in the county thinking, okay, I just signed for 2 years. I'm not going to be in there forever. What am I going to do when I get out? And I remember thinking of all the jobs that I had. And when I was 19, I worked at Lowe's. A buddy of mine got me hired, and they put me in a outside lawn and garden section, and where I met my first horticulturist. Shout out to Mark Eatman. And that was, at that time, the most enjoyable job that I had ever had. It didn't pay much, but I really enjoyed going to work. And so while I was sitting in the county jail contemplating what I'm going to do, I come up with a plan of, all right, I need to get a GED somehow so I can go to college for horticulture, because that's what I want to do. And I made it happen. When I got out, I immediately signed up at Tarrant County College, their horticulture program, great program. And I started mowing lawns. And then I started going to a Baptist church on my mom's street. And the bass player from the band at the church got me a job with him at Carino's at an Italian restaurant. And I'll never forget this. So I go up there and I meet the manager, and I shake his hand. And he gives me an application, and I fill it out, and I come back and I give it right back to him. I want this job today. And he looks over it and he's like, well, I can't hire you with this on here. I'm like, what? And he points to the background check, and
he checked yes.
He said, fill this out again and don't put that, because I got to send this to the corporate office and they're not going to hire you. So I lied about my background.
Well, that was kind of a blessing, because we teach people to be honest and tell them about what you did with him, but then the fact that he was in charge and he told you to take it off, that's what gave you the favor.
Yes.
And so, but we tell the people, because it's real demeaning too. Once you get a job, once you don't check it, and then they come back and fire you like a month later because you didn't tell. They say now you're a liar too.
Right.
And so so that was good.
So he gives me the application back. I fill it out and give it back to him, and I say, yeah, I've never committed a crime in my life, And I get the job, and it's going well. Everything I do, I always want to excel at and progress. I always want to make progress in my life. Even when I was behind bars, I was always trying to make progress. And so I started off as a dishwasher there. Then I got a job bussing tables, and then I got myself a waiter position. I started making good enough money. I got my first apartment back when there was this thing called affordable housing. That don't exist no more. And then I got a job at Archie's Garden Land, and I quit mowing lawns, but I was still going to school and working at the Italian restaurant and working at the nursery.
Okay, tell us what you were going to school for.
Horticulture.
That's
yes,
right.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
And Tarrant County College's horticulture program is fantastic. It's very involved in the community. And that's how I met a lot of people in this industry, was through Tarrant County College. I don't know if you've ever met Laura Miller.
Yeah.
That's how I met Laura Miller. Big shout out to her and the Texas Department of Agriculture.
And that's how we met.
That's how we met. That's right. You coming up to the nursery and asking me questions, and
I was where is Will? Where's the tall guy? Where is he?
Yes. You were one of my
And then
favorite
you
customers.
quit. And then I said, what happened to Will? You got a better job or something? Botanical garden.
Yes. So I worked at Archie's for 5 years, and You know, I finished at Tarrant County College and got accepted to Tarleton State University, and was living out in Stephenville, working at the Wolf Nursery in Stephenville, which is like 250 acres. It's humongous. But they weren't paying me as much as Archie's was. Archie was paying me like $5 an hour more. So I was coming back to Fort Worth, working here Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then working at Wolf Nursery and going to Tarleton State University because, I mean, I've been blessed in my life, but nothing has come for free for me at all. I've had to work double, and being behind bars did put me back. That set me back on time, on building credit. You know, I didn't have anything when I got out. I
But
didn't
it sounds like your determination, that drive you have, is what really, because some people won't push and do that push and push, or they don't have. But you seem like you had just a natural drive that made you want to excel, like you said, and do better. And you didn't stop at one thing. You didn't stop at TCC. You went to Tarleton, and then you moved around for your best benefits.
Oh, definitely. And I get that work ethic from my pops, man. Shout out to Mr. Freddie Romero. Like I told you earlier, my dad never had one job. You know, he did 20 years in the military, but he had other jobs the whole time. I remember he was working at a body shop also, and he was bartender at the White Elephant Saloon in the stockyards, all at the same time, you know. And the man's work ethic, it definitely trickled down to his children. Me and my brothers, if there's one thing, we're going to go out there and work. We're not afraid to work. And I picked something that I enjoy, which made it much easier. I enjoy gardening. You know, I can't say I would have been this successful if I would have been working in warehouses or
kept working at the
or
restaurant.
restaurants. You know, something that I wouldn't have enjoyed showing up to as much. And also something that I could work at and go to school for the same thing. That made a big difference because I excelled at my jobs so much more because I was going to school for what I was working, and vice versa. You know, they complemented each other well, and it paid off at Archie's. Like Archie started me off at $8 an hour, and in less than 2 years I was making like $15 an hour. And that was because I was excelling at what I was doing. I went and got a turf and ornamental pest control license and a greenhouse pest control license, which Tarrant County College's classes prepared me for those tests. They still offer that same pesticide class to this day. And so things like that, people have to realize that if you're going to pick an industry with very specific like certifications and whatnot, you got to investigate what these certifications are that you're going to need or that would benefit you, and how to acquire them. Some of them you can't just go take a test to become a certified arborist for trees. You can't just walk in there and take that test. You have to have
Training.
You have to have training, or you have to have schooling, or
Do you
on
have
the
to
job.
have annual training, like the CEU?
Once you,
or
yeah,
something?
and that's with my pesticide license. The matter of fact, the arborist and the pesticide license, a lot of those CEUs cross over. So I see a lot of those arborist guys all the time.
So tell us where you're working now.
So now I work for the Fort Worth Botanic Gardens. I've been there for about 3.5 years. I worked in the Japanese garden for 2 years, which is beautiful. I got promoted up to my own garden, and been loving every day of it. You know, horticulture isn't really the highest paying industry. We're not making money like doctors and lawyers out here, but we enjoy showing up to work. I get to work out in the sun. I get to work with nature. I get to see literally the fruits of my labor. And that's something that I don't want to just do just to make money. Everything I do throughout my day is for Jesus Christ, number one, but it's horticulture based. Like I wake up in the morning and water my plants, and you know I do the community garden with you, which I love, and thank you so much for the opportunity to help with the community garden. And sometimes I've done something that was really funny. So you know we got the seedless table grapes, the seedless red table grapes.
Yeah,
They're delicious.
They are.
A couple of years ago, I picked some of those and some of the strawberries out of the garden, and I seen some of the fellas on the corner, some youngsters. And they recognized me. Like, what's up, Will? What are you doing over here? I was like, y'all want some Como grown grapes? And I bring I bring this plate of grapes out, and it's like, the grapes are ready in
They're
summertime.
so sweet.
They're super sweet, and I chilled them in some water, rinsed them off in some cool water. It was like 105 degrees outside. And I offered these youngsters some grapes, and they're like, man, these are delicious. Y'all, you grew these yourselves? I was like, yes, we grew these at the Como Community Garden right there on Humbert. Y'all should come by. And they got their interest. They didn't know that you could just grow grapes in your backyard. It's one of the easiest things to grow. And so when these young men who don't even know that grapes grow on a vine in the first place, eat
and
some
that
grapes.
vine is beautiful the way it's spread out, and
Yeah, it's
you
about
pruned it
25
back
feet long.
this year. Yeah.
Yeah, I prune them every other year because grapes only produce on new growth. So if you leave a bunch of old growth, that old growth's never going to produce grapes off of it. So you got to cut it back. I like to do it every other year. Major trim back. I'll give it a prune every year, but a major cut back every other year.
Well, that was one of the guys that was doing community service. He was court ordered, and he planted that thing, and I didn't even know it was there. So do you call it a vine or you call it a tree? Because it comes up from the dirt, and then it's like a vine after that, all over the fence.
Yes.
But he planted that, and that's why I love, because Jesus uses parables of growth and fruit in the Bible. And so when you're talking to those young men, and when I'm talking to people, we can always use a parable of growth. So the way you talk about that vine, I see a sermon there. The new growth. And that was kind of like you had new growth, but you also had a strategic plan. But then you had a caring family that they had put good ethics in you. So not everybody has that. Not everybody has been taught those things. And I think that's some of the things we're seeing. So some of the women that we help and men that we're talking to, that we have to start from ground zero with them, but we meet them where they are. So that's what I'm hearing from you, because we do teach to get a job that you like. We ask them when we do the job readiness part, we say, what is your dream job? And then we work toward that. One girl wanted to be a florist. I don't know if you met Laura, but she wanted to be a florist because her mother, she grew up and her mother had her own florist shop. So that's what she's doing now. And she's been gone from our home about 2 or 3 years, and she does beautiful, beautiful flowers. She's very good at it. So we encourage people, and sometimes when people get out, and you might can add this, they're desperate because their family is on them, if they have children or if they have a spouse or a girlfriend, they're putting pressure on them about supporting and contributing. They're a PO, if they're on parole, they got to pay restitution. They got to pay, if you do a urine test, you got to pay for that. You have the fees you have to pay. And then the day you get out of jail, prison, you got to report the next day. So you got to have transportation to get to these things. And it's a lot of, I see pressure. So did you have that kind of pressure?
I did, but I did not have a PO because of minimum sentencing laws. As soon as I got to Middleton Unit, probably a month later, I got a letter from the parole board, and it was a serve-all. You know what a serve-all is?
What's that?
That means I had to serve all my time behind bars, no parole, because of minimum sentencing laws.
Because they only gave you 2 years, so
Yes,
they figured they did you a favor.
And
so.
that was the least amount of time I could do, and I had to do every day of it.
So what would you recommend as a society, as you come in here and we could help people, what would you, but I'm talking about being realistic on the ground, because I know we can support them because they don't know we're here. And like the young man I was talking to the other day, he was just reluctant to even share. So we have to make people share, what are your needs so we can help you. But if you don't share your needs, but I know in prison they have reentry programs, and then when the ladies show up, they don't have their ID, they don't have the paper things that they need for their identity. I go, why do you go through the reentry program? This girl came, she got it, why you didn't go? So I know they have a lot of opportunities in prison, and Tarrant County is getting a lot better with some of the programming, and then nonprofits that work together to help. Because a lot of times people think that, okay, you grown, you went to jail, you probably deserve to go to jail, but that's not the truth. That's not always the truth. So, what would you advise that we could do as a community, as a nonprofit, as we try to serve people? What can we do better?
Well, it definitely starts with preventing people from being in these legal situations in the first place, or getting incarcerated. I think if we had some sort of legal help in these communities, right here in Lake Como, Texas, I think if we had legal help for people in the neighborhood, it would prevent people from going there in the first place. And then if it does happen, one thing that I had that I'm pretty sure they got rid of probably about 12 years ago was a program called Project Rio. It was Project Reintegration of Offenders. And one thing they did, even though I didn't make parole, I was never in a halfway house or anything like that, before I even got out, they lined me up with a few things that would help me as soon as I got out. One thing, take your release papers that say that you have been released from prison. And if you have any tickets, go downtown and show a judge your release papers. I did that. I went downtown Fort Worth, showed a judge my release papers, and got about $3,000 worth of tickets, time served. There you go. And then went straight from there to the DPS and got an ID.
I think that's why it's good when you have an assistive program to help you, because what we do, we have a checklist and so we go through this checklist. That first 30 days is just handling business, no pressure. We don't want you to have the pressure. We don't want you to worry about how you're going to pay the fee or of living in the house, how you're going to do all that. We want you to take care of your business, because once you start working, then it's going to be difficult to do those things. And then just give them that information and telling them, you know what, you can do your time served. So hopefully when they're incarcerated, then they're taking advantage of, because now they call it reentry programs, inside and outside. You're looking for reentry. So hopefully they'll take advantage of those programs and get some of that stuff done. And then when they come home, get it done and utilize that, because yeah, a lot of people, and then because if you get stopped or something, they're going to take you if you don't take care of that stuff.
If you get out of prison and you haven't went and showed a judge that you've done time and got time served on your tickets, if you go to the DPS, they're going to arrest you and you're going to be right back in the county jail sitting out those tickets.
That's what happened. We had a lady going to get her ID, because sometimes they just want a Texas ID so they can get a job. Because when you go to work, you can't use you don't want to use your TDJC ID. You want to use, because
you want to use a normal Texas ID.
Yeah, that's kind of demeaning, but sometimes the ladies have had to use it. But yeah, so that's good. That's good. So what else would you like to share with us?
So I've always just been on the cusp of being able to afford to live in Fort Worth. My rent when I got out was about $600, and it's gone